In the stillness of night, when the world grows quiet, and the modern hum of screens fades into silence, we are left with the most ancient rhythm of all, sleep. Tonight, we invite you to drift across centuries. Not through war or kings, not through glory or gold, but through gentle, forgotten rituals of rest. Before electricity, before alarm clocks, before the night lost its mystery, there was a time when the dark was sacred. When people feared the moon, whispered prayers to sleep gods, and dreamed in silence under starlit skies. From the soft beds of Roman villas, to the frozen huts of the far north, from Egyptian stone chambers, to candlelit castles tucked in snowy hills, you're about to visit the quiet side of history. The side where people laid their bodies down, closed their eyes, and surrendered to the dark. So lie back, let the weight of the day fall away, and drift with us into the night of the ancient world. Globe showing Europe, Africa. Before we begin, tell us in the comments, where are you listening from tonight? What era or ancient place would you most love to fall asleep in? We read every message, and every dream. There was a time, not so long ago in the great sweep of human history, when the setting sun marked more than the end of a day. It was a signal, a hush, a descent into something sacred and slow, the deep, black silence of night. Before electricity, the world dimmed early. The sky turned to ink, and stars emerged like whispered secrets. Villages quieted, chores paused, and the pulse of the world softened. Candles flickered in clay homes, torches sputtered in iron sconces, and oil lamps glowed low on wooden tables, casting shadows that danced and disappeared. To be awake after sunset was not normal, it was unusual, expensive, and often a little dangerous. There were no cities buzzing with neon, no hum of traffic, no glow beneath doorways. Just the slow rhythm of bodies adjusting to the dark, and minds preparing to dream. In the countryside, peasants and farmers followed the sun's rhythm. By dusk, their hands were sore, their feet heavy with dirt. They spoke softly by the fire, if at all, and listened to the sounds outside: a dog barking, a barn door creaking, an owl calling through the trees. They didn't fight the darkness, they folded into it. In towns, people lit lamps only when they must. Fuel was precious. Glass was rare. Most walked by moonlight, if they walked at all. And when the wind blew out a flame, the darkness returned without apology. Nights were longer in winter. Much longer. In Northern Europe, darkness might stretch for 16 hours or more. And so, people split their sleep in two. A strange but natural rhythm we have forgotten. They would sleep for 4 or 5 hours, then wake. Not with panic or alarm, but with calm. They'd rise from their beds, sit by the embers of a fire, whisper prayers, drink something warm, or quietly talk. This gentle pause in the middle of the night, called the first sleep and second sleep, was once normal, even comforting. In great cities like Rome or Istanbul, a hush still came with the stars. Shops closed, doors bolted, lanterns dimmed. The streets were left to night guards, wandering monks, and hungry animals. The dark belonged to its own quiet world. People feared the night, yes, but they also respected it. It was the time of dreams, of spirits, of ancestors, and omens. It was the time when gods whispered and the dead remembered. Sleep was not just rest. It was ritual. And the dark was not just absence, it was alive with meaning. Imagine it. A world lit only by fire. A bed made of straw and wool. the warmth of a body beside you, the faint rustle of trees outside a thin wall. No screens, no lights, no distractions, just you, the dark, and the slow, sacred invitation to sleep. In the land where the Nile flows like a silver thread through stone and sand, night comes quietly, but with purpose. The sky, once a blazing blue, softens into rose and amber. And finally, as the last call of the ibis fades, the desert exhales. Ancient Egypt did not sleep all at once. The nobles, the scribes, the farmers, the servants each found rest in their own way. But they all shared one truth: when Ra, the sun god, sailed beyond the western horizon, the world became sacred once again. The Nile glimmered under moonlight, its waters dark and still, mirroring a sky scattered with stars. Stars that the Egyptians did not just gaze at, but worshipped. To them, the night was not merely a pause between days. It was a place, a realm, a journey that the soul undertook alongside the gods. Within cool stone chambers lined with hieroglyphs, the wealthy of Thebes or Memphis would prepare for rest. Their servants lit small oil lamps, shallow bowls of bronze or clay, filled with animal fat, each with a simple wick of flax. The light they gave off was gentle, flickering, golden. Not enough to chase away the dark, but enough to keep the shadows slow. Beds were not soft. A wooden frame, lashed with woven reeds or linen. A headrest of carved wood or ivory cradled the neck. Strange to us now, but elegant to them. And cool against the skin after a long day in the sun. In the cities, nobles lay beneath linen sheets, their rooms perfumed with frankincense and myrrh. The scent, believed to please the gods, was part of the ritual of winding down. For in Egypt, even sleep was a sacred act. Before lying down, a person might recite prayers to Bes, the squat, lion-faced protector of households, who watched over sleepers and frightened away evil spirits. Children clutched amulets of Ta'aret, the hippo-shaped goddess who guarded mothers and babies through the night. And on clay tablets or papyrus slips, spells were written in ink to protect the sleeper's dreams. But protection was only part of it. The Egyptians believed that dreams were messages, divine whispers, journeys of the soul as it left the body each night, traveling through hidden realms and sacred waters, to glimpse visions that could heal, or warn. Temple priests kept dream books. catalogs of symbols and meanings. To dream of a crocodile was danger. To dream of a lotus blooming might signal rebirth. To dream of the sun rising in darkness was a sign that Ra had favored you. These books were consulted like oracles. The boundary between sleeping and waking was thin and holy. Out in the countryside, beyond the great temples and palaces, sleep was simpler, but no less profound. In mud brick homes with flat roofs, families might sleep on the roof itself. The desert breeze cooler beneath the stars. They would lie on reed mats, wrapped in linen, listening to the creak of palm trees, and the croak of frogs along the canal banks. Children drifted off to the sound of stories, tales of Horus and Set, of Isis and Osiris. Tales that explain the stars, the moon, and why the scorpion hides during the day but rules the sands at night. Even among the farmers and fishermen, the night was not empty. It was a crossing. They believed that each night, as they slept, they too joined Ra on his great solar bark. The golden ship that sailed through the Duat, the underworld, fighting off chaos so that morning might come again. The sleeper, in their dreams, became a voyager, riding beside the gods, witness to their struggles and to their victories. But not all sleep was peaceful. The desert held dangers. Jackals, snakes, and unseen spirits. Nightmares were not just the mind's confusion, but signs of imbalance, or the presence of malevolent forces. To ward them off, charms were placed beneath beds. Amulets of Horus Si, or protective scarabs etched with spells. Mothers whispered blessings over their children, and fathers drew symbols at the door. Some nights, the moon would rise full and high, casting silver across the dunes. It was then that the priests of Khonsu, the moon god, held silent vigil. Khonsu, who healed through dreams, who wandered the sky in white robes, chasing illness from the minds of men. His temples, calm and echoing with incense, became places where the sleepless sought comfort. People would lay on stone floors within those sacred walls, hoping to dream, hoping to be seen, hoping to be healed. And when dawn finally painted the edges of the sky in gold, it was said that Ra had returned from the underworld, victorious. And that the dreamer, too, had made it back safely. Their soul returned, their mind calmed, their body ready for the day. This was sleep in ancient Egypt. Not a retreat, but a ritual. A quiet voyage into the unknown, wrapped in linen, lit by flickering flame, and watched over by gods. So if you find yourself resting now, as the digital world dims around you, remember. Somewhere, long ago, someone just like you laid down upon woven reeds, closed their eyes, and slipped into the dream world beneath the stars. And perhaps, they dreamed of you. In the land of marble temples and olive groves, where the Aegean whispers to rocky shores, nightfall was a time of reflection, mystery, and quiet ritual. Ancient Greece, cradle of philosophy and myth, welcomed the dark not with fear, but with wonder. The Greeks knew that wisdom did not come only in the daylight. In fact, some of their greatest truths were whispered in the shadows. When the sun set beyond the hills of Attica or Crete, the sky turned a dusky violet. Stars shimmered slowly into being, each one believed to be a goddess, watching, remembering. The people, in their homes of stone and plaster, slowed their movements. The agora emptied. The sandals of merchants and scholars quieted on the roads. And the oil lamps, delicate, clay-bellied things, were lit, one by one. Their glow was golden and modest. Olive oil, poured with care into the bowl, wicked through linen fiber. A small flame danced just above the spout, casting soft halos on whitewashed walls. In homes near Athens, families gathered for the evening meal, known as deipnon. Bread, cheese, figs, and wine. A final offering to Hestia, goddess of the hearth. And then the home settled into silence. Sleep in ancient Greece came in layers. It was not merely rest, but an art, a descent. Before laying down, it was common to bathe, not in hot water, but warm, enough to soothe the skin. The scent of laurel, thyme, or lavender might linger in the air. Some wrapped themselves in soft woolen cloaks. Others lay nude upon linen, depending on the season and the wealth of the household. The bed, called a klein, was simple. A wooden frame, slightly elevated. Leather or rope lattices stretched across it, and atop that, straw or wool stuffed mattresses. Pillows filled with feathers, or even crushed herbs, might rest beneath the head. It was not uncommon for a small statue of Hypnos, the god of sleep, to sit near the bed. Winged, delicate, and eternally gentle. Hypnos was said to brush the eyes of mortals with dreams, as light as a feather's touch. No prayers were recited aloud, but his presence was always felt. Soft, soothing, sacred. For the Greeks, dreams were not accidental. They were messages. Sometimes divine, sometimes prophetic. And for those seeking answers, sleep was not the end of the day, but the beginning of revelation. This led many to the Asclepian, the sleep temples dedicated to Asclepios, god of healing. These temples, scattered across the ancient world, in Epidaurus, Kos, and Pergamon, were sanctuaries where sleep itself was part of medicine. People traveled far, sick in body or lost in spirit, to sleep under the protection of the god, and await a vision that would bring healing. The process was called incubation. It began with ritual cleansing, bathing in sacred waters, wearing white robes, abstaining from certain foods, purifying the body to open the soul. Then, the supplicant would be led into the abaton, a dark, quiet chamber where they would lie on stone or straw, and wait for sleep to take them. There, in that deep stillness, they hoped to be visited. Perhaps in a dream, Asclepios would appear, or one of his sacred animals, often a serpent or a dog. They would heal the dreamer in a vision, or whisper a cure only the priests could interpret come morning. These temples were not bustling or bright. They were hushed, candle-lit, silent but for the breath of sleeping pilgrims, and the occasional footfall of a priest moving between dreams. Back in the cities, philosophers also pondered sleep. Plato wondered if dreams were glimpses into the soul's true desires. Aristotle believed dreams had physical causes. A flicker of digestion, a memory stirred. And yet, even they recognized that the night was not something to resist, but to observe. The Stoics taught that a calm mind produced gentle dreams. That to sleep well, one must first think well. So many took time before bed to reflect, to write, or recite inwardly, what they had done that day, what they could improve, and what they had no control over. This self-examination was not punishment. It was peace. It allowed the mind to settle, like sediment drifting to the bottom of a quiet stream. Even the myths of the Greeks honored sleep. In the underworld, beyond the gates of Hades, there stood the cave of Hypnos himself. A silent place surrounded by poppies and forget-me-nots. There, he lived with his twin brother then Ato's death. Both considered necessary, and neither feared by the wise. To sleep, in this world, was to visit that cave in safety, and return, with a piece of wisdom tucked into the folds of a dream. Many Greeks believed the night sky was a map of past souls. Constellations that once walked the earth, now watching from above. So when they lay down to sleep, they did so under stories. Under Orion, under Andromeda, under the slow march of stars that told of loss, courage, and change. They believed that when the world grew dark, the invisible truths came closer. So now, as you lie in your own space, with the faint glow of your own lamp, and the quiet of the night surrounding you, know that you are not so far from those ancients after all. They, too, worried and wondered. They, too, longed for peace. They, too, closed their eyes, and stepped into the unknown. Not with fear, but with faith. In the dream, the stars begin to rise above Rome. Not the loud, bustling Rome of the Senate or the gladiator-s arena, but the gentler, quieter Rome of the night. A different city awakens when the sun goes down. One where lamps flicker in clay bowls, and marble floors grow cold under bare feet. It is evening in the empire. The markets have emptied. The echoes of merchants and musicians have faded into silence. And in the shadow of great temples, ordinary people return to their simple homes, draw their curtains tight, and welcome the rhythm of sleep. But sleep did not come all at once in Rome. There was a ritual to the way night unfolded. A slow descent. A gentle dimming of the world. In a domus, a Roman home of the upper class. The atrium is quiet now, its central pool reflecting the pale moonlight through the open roof. Slaves move softly, extinguishing oil lamps one by one. A mother hums to her child in a side chamber. An old senator dozes upright in a chair, his scroll forgotten in his lap. Outside, a stray dog walks the cobbled streets. A patrol of watchmen pass with torches, their sandals clicking faintly. The city that once shouted now whispers. In the poorer insulae, the tall, rickety apartment blocks. Families settle close together. Curtains of cloth divide space rather than doors. The scent of olive oil and smoke lingers in the air. Here, sleep is less about comfort, and more about necessity. Yet even among the humble, night had its beauty. A small shrine in the corner of the room glows with a votive flame. A statue of the household gods Lares and Penates watches over the family as they lay their heads down on worn cushions, their sandals placed carefully at the foot of the bed, their worries offered to the gods in soft whispers. Keep us safe through the darkness. They might murmur. Let no thief, no fire, no fever find us. This was Rome's version of a bedtime prayer. The Romans were practical people, engineers of roads, masters of law and architecture. But when it came to night, they too turned toward mystery, toward ritual, toward the quiet power of the unseen. Many believed that dreams carried messages, not just symbols of the mind, but actual glimpses into the will of the gods. To dream of a river might mean fortune ahead. To see a dying bird, ill omen. A mother dreaming of fire might run to the temple of Vesta the next morning, offering a coin or a cup of wine for protection. Dreams were often recorded and interpreted. There were books for this. Old texts kept by priestesses and scholars. Even emperors paid attention to the visions they saw behind closed eyes. But the city did not fall fully asleep. There were always those who stirred after dark. Philosophers walked under porticos, debating quietly in the moonlight. Midwives were summoned for sudden births. Thieves moved like cats through alleyways, and taverns in the lower districts still buzzed with drunken songs. Yet above them all, the moon passed silently, and within each home, there was the gentle descent into rest. In wealthier homes, bedchambers were small but elegant. A lectus, a Roman bed, was covered in soft blankets and cushions of goose down. People slept in tunics, not unlike long shirts, and draped a woolen blanket across their shoulders. The beds were not always private. It was common for people to share rooms, even beds. Not just lovers or spouses, but siblings, cousins, even close friends. The Romans saw nothing strange in shared sleep. To them, it was warmth, and in the long Roman winters, warmth was survival. In rural villas, far from the city, sleep came even more slowly. The cicadas hummed in the olive groves. A shepherd's dog barked once, then quieted. And the stars, so many stars, scattered themselves across the countryside skies, like white petals on black velvet. There, in the quiet of farmhouses and gardens, Romans fell asleep to the sound of fountains and wind. But night wasn't only for rest. Sometimes it was for reflection. Some Romans believed it was a time to connect with ancestors. To sit quietly beside the small ancestral altar, to light a bit of incense, and to remember. A man might sit and think of his father, gone a decade now. Or a woman might touch a carved bust of her grandmother, and ask for wisdom in tomorrow's dealings. They believed those who came before still listened, still watched. And in this quiet communion, many found peace. Even the mighty emperors, wrapped in silks in their palaces, could not escape the stillness of night. Some feared it, feared the judgment of the gods, or the memories that surfaced in dreams. Others embraced it. Read poetry by lamplight, or bathed before bed in warm oils infused with lavender and myrrh. In every corner of Rome, whether rich or poor, citizen or slave, night was a time to pause, to surrender the burdens of the day, to lie down and release control, and to trust that the world would still be turning when the sun rose again. And perhaps, as you now lie in your own bed, in a world very different from Rome, you too know this feeling. That soft hush that comes before sleep. That deep human need to rest, to retreat into dreams. Close your eyes. Feel the weight of the night pressing gently around you. Not as a threat, but as a blanket. A covering. A stillness shared with centuries of souls before you. Let the marble halls of ancient Rome fade away. Let the flickering lamps dim. And slip into the kind of sleep that even emperors could not command, but only hope to find. Far to the north, where the days are short and the nights long, the Viking world begins to quiet. The sun dips low over snowy ridges and frozen bays. Smoke curls from turf-roofed homes, and across the darkening fjords, the silence of winter takes hold. This is not the Rome of marble, nor the Egypt of incense. This is a colder place. Sharper. Older. But here too, sleep has always come. Even to warriors. Even to those who sailed wild seas. In the heart of a Norse village, a longhouse breathes warmth into the night. The walls are timber and earth. The roof low and heavy with sod. Inside, the fire glows amber. Above it, dried herbs sway. Sage, juniper, sweetgrass. Infusing the air with memory. One by one, the people settle. A mother hushes her child with a lullaby older than language. A grandfather shifts closer to the hearth, fur blanket tucked to his chin. A dog stretches, sighs, and curls tighter near the coals. Outside, the wind howls against the door, but within, there is stillness. Beds were not separate rooms here. They were woven into the very bones of the longhouse. Built-in wooden bunks along the walls, stacked with hay, furs, and woolen cloaks. Each family huddled together, not just for warmth, but for kinship. To be close. To endure. Sleep in the Viking world was a communal act. And it was sacred. Before lying down, many would trace runes. Ancient symbols carved into bone or etched into wood. One for protection. One for peaceful dreams. Another to ward off spirits of the forest or sea. These were not superstitions to them. They were truths. Ways of speaking to the unseen. To the Norse mind, the world was alive with hidden beings, spirits in the trees, trolls beneath the hills, elves dancing in the frost. Night was not empty. It was full. So they whispered charms to the gods, to Frigg, the goddess of hearth and motherhood, to Odin, the all-seeing wanderer, and to Nod, the personification of night herself. A shadowy woman riding a black horse across the sky, trailing sleep in her wake. A carved amulet might be hung near the bed. A Thor's hammer, small and silent, to ward off the unknown. Children sometimes clutched cloth dolls or wooden carvings. Wives tucked charms into the folds of their husband's cloaks. Old seers left bowls of water near the door, to catch any wandering spirit before it crossed the threshold. And then, the fire was banked. The last embers tucked under ash. The smoke thinned. And the longhouse fell into shadow. The darkness here was deeper than in the south. In winter, the sun might disappear for weeks. Night stretched endlessly across the sky. But still, they slept. They did not fear the dark, not truly. They respected it, welcomed it, because in the dark came dreams. And dreams were important. The Vikings believed dreams were messages. Portents. Some said they came from Odin himself. Others claimed they were fragments of journeys taken by the soul, while the body lay still. If one dreamed of a wolf, perhaps a warning. A sea with no horizon, a coming voyage. A tree struck by lightning, change. Or fate. Dreams were often shared at dawn. Elders might interpret them. Warriors might act on them. And if someone had no dreams at all, that, too, meant something. A silence. A pause before a storm. But not all was mystical. There was comfort here, too. The feel of a sister's warmth beside you. The sound of soft breathing, steady and slow. The rustle of straw as someone shifted in sleep. the occasional murmur, a dream escaping into the air. And beyond the longhouse walls, the night continued its own rhythm. The creak of snow under a fox's paw. The gentle hum of ice along the river banks. The stars so sharp they seemed to pierce the sky. Above it all, the northern lights danced. To the Vikings, this was more than beauty. It was meaning. Some believed the lights were the glow of Valkyrie's armor. The maidens who chose who would die in battle, and who would rise to Valhalla. Others said they were fires from the halls of the gods, or the reflections of great shields hung high in the heavens. Whatever they were watched in silence. And under them, thousands slept. Viking sleep was not always soft. There were nights in tents, aboard longships, or beneath the bare branches of cold trees. But wherever they lay, they slept with purpose, with ritual, with respect. Even warriors, after days of stormy seas and bloody raids, knew to rest. Because rest meant renewal. It meant strength. It meant hearing the gods whisper in the dark. So tonight, as you lie still in your own bed, somewhere far from the fjords and pine forests, perhaps you carry something of them, too. That instinct to draw the blanket close. To whisper a hope into the dark. To listen for the quiet rhythm of your own breath. And maybe, just maybe, a part of you drifts through the night. Past frozen fields, over dark lakes, beneath green ribbons of light in the sky. Carried softly into dreams. Just as the Norse once were. So close your eyes, let the fire of the day go out, and follow the old runes into sleep. The sun has bowed behind Mount Fuji, its last golden thread swallowed by indigo skies. A pale moon rises, round and watchful, over the rooftops of wooden houses and temple eaves. In this part of the ancient world, the land once called Nippon, night arrives not as a shadow, but as a guest. It is welcomed softly. No ringing bells. No shouting vendors. Just the faint, almost whispered closing of a paper door. A thin plume of incense rising from a ceramic dish. The flicker of a lantern glowing behind shoji screens. Inside, the air is cool. Tatami mats cushion every step, woven straw releasing its dry, comforting scent. Shoes have long since been left at the door. Silence lives here, a deliberate silence. Not empty, but full of meaning. A woman in a silk kimono lowers herself to her knees, bowing before the family altar. She lights a stick of sandalwood incense, and closes her eyes. She does not speak, for her ancestors already know what is in her heart. Behind her, the paper walls glow with amber light. Children whisper stories, tucked together on the futon, their heads resting on rice straw pillows wrapped in cotton cloth. Tonight, like every night, they listen to tales of fox spirits and moon princesses. Of brave warriors who sleep with their swords under their pillows, and gods who walk among mortals in the form of cranes. The Japanese night is not rushed. It unfolds gradually, like a scroll unrolling under the moon. In rural villages, the day's work ends with the last clang of the blacksmith's hammer, or the final sweep of a farmer's sickle. Then, people bathe. Not just to clean the body, but to cleanse the mind. The afuro, or bath, is warm and wooden. Water is heated over fire, and poured slowly, in silence, over shoulders tired from labor. There is no scrubbing, no soap-scented lather. Just stillness. Steam rises. Muscles loosen. Thoughts settle. In these baths, sleep begins before a bed is even touched. Once clean, families gather for a final meal. Often simple: rice, miso soup, pickled vegetables. Laughter is quiet. Voices are soft. It is not shame that quiets them, but respect. Even the home has a soul, called kami. And the walls deserve peace. When it is time to sleep, rooms are rearranged with care. Futons are unrolled. Blankets are aired. Pillows placed just so. There is beauty in this act of preparation. A ritual passed down from mother to daughter, father to son, generation to generation. Everything is light, portable, and intentional. By morning, it will all be folded away again, like dreams packed into a drawer. The wind moves through the bamboo. A soft tapping, like fingers on a drum far, far away. And above, the moon continues its quiet journey, casting pale reflections in garden ponds, where koi swim silently under the lily leaves. The samurai, too, sleeps. But his sleep is different. He lies near his katana, its lacquered sheath gleaming beside his mat. Though his breath slows and eyes close, a part of him stays alert. He is trained this way. To wake if needed, to protect the home from any spirit or thief who might cross its sacred boundary. Yet he dreams of plum blossoms, and the distant sound of bells in the capital, of duty fulfilled, and lives lived honorably. Not all in ancient Japan found sleep easily. Some feared the spirits of the night. Yurei wandering souls, with hair like riverweed, and eyes like empty wells. It was said they lingered where sorrow had rooted too deeply. A jilted lover, a samurai disgraced, a mother mourning a lost child. To protect against such spirits, families hung charms by the window. They placed salt at the threshold. They recited soft chants before bed, not loud enough to scare, but just enough to be heard by the world that lives beneath this one. Still, sleep came, as it always does. And with it, dreams. Japanese poets wrote of dreams as boats on a stream, sailing from this world into another. In dreams, one might speak with a long-dead relative, or visit a place never seen before. To dream of cherry blossoms was a blessing. To dream of autumn rain was a quiet sadness. To dream of flying, an omen of change. Monks in the temples high on forested hills would wake in the dark, but not because sleep had failed them. Rather, they woke to chant, to meditate, to sit in stillness while others slumbered. To them, sleep and wakefulness were not so different. Both were realms of impermanence, of drifting clouds, of breath in and breath out. They believed the soul wandered while the body slept. Not lost, just unanchored. And each morning, a gentle return. As the night deepened, the frogs began to sing. 1,000 tiny voices, echoing across rice fields, joined by the click of crickets and the rustle of leaves. Together, these became the lullaby of Japan. A lullaby that has lasted centuries, passed from forest to city, from the highlands of Hokkaido to the warm southern islands of Kyushu. Now, as you listen, perhaps you feel it too. The rhythm of a night. Not so different from your own. Yes, the rooms are smaller, the beds closer to the ground, the rituals quieter. But the desire is the same. To rest. To breathe. To be safe. So lie back now. Imagine the paper walls around you. The wooden beams overhead. The scent of tatami and cedar. A paper lantern flickering low, its light like the glow of a firefly. And know that you are not alone in the dark. All across time, and across oceans, people have closed their eyes. Under the same moon, with the same dreams, and the same silent hope, that the night will pass gently. And morning will come. Like plum blossoms after frost. When the sun slips behind the date palms of Mesopotamia, and the river Tigris begins to cool beneath the night, Baghdad, once the crown jewel of learning and culture, exhales. The day has been rich with thought, mathematicians scribbling on wax tablets, physicians whispering in clinics, librarians running their fingers along the spines of ancient scrolls. But now, the scrolls are closed. The inkwells capped. The scholars rest their minds. And the city listens to the arrival of night. In the golden era of Harun al-Rashid, Baghdad did not sleep in darkness. It glowed. Lanterns of bronze and colored glass lined the arcades of the House of Wisdom, casting mosaics of light onto the marble floors. In the market stalls, oil lamps flickered like fireflies, and vendors wrapped up their silks and spices with a sigh. Even the mosques remained open, lit gently, their domes catching moonlight, as voices recited Quran under their breath. Night in Baghdad was not feared. It was understood. For this was a time when science met poetry, and astronomy held hands with faith. Look up, and you would see stars. Not just twinkles in a black sky, but familiar, named friends. Alatak, Betelgeuse, Altair. Arabic names still sung in the sky today. Astronomers mapped constellations with brass astrolabes, measuring angles, and pondering the curve of heaven. They slept only after long conversations. Not of war or famine, but of Jupiter's orbit and the weight of air. Sleep, in this world, was not a passive escape. It was a space for vision. In Baghdad's golden age, dreams were taken seriously. Interpreted with care. Written down in private notebooks by Sufi mystics. And whispered across cushions in courtyards by curious wives. A dream might be divine. Or a warning. Or simply the wandering of the soul while the body lay still beneath linen sheets. Inside homes made of clay, brick and wood, families gathered after the evening prayer. On rooftops cooled by breezes from the river, they unrolled their cotton bedding under the stars. There were no ceiling fans, only the slow movement of night air, and the comfort of being together beneath a shared sky. A father tells his daughter a story of Scheherazade, of how she wove tales that held death at bay. Night after night, with wisdom and bravery disguised as fantasy. As she drifts to sleep, his voice lowers. The stars keep listening. Elsewhere, a scholar sits alone. He has lit one final lamp. Not to read, but to think. He considers how the body rests. But the soul continues its work. Just as the city sleeps, but the river flows on. He rolls out his mat, faces west, and lies on his side. A position recommended by the Prophet himself. And breathes in the scent of jasmine from his courtyard garden. In the wealthier homes, there are cushions from India, blankets woven in Yemen, and rose water sprayed lightly upon the pillows. In humbler homes, there is less silk, but just as much peace. Mothers hum lullabies in Persian and Arabic, their melodies stretching back centuries. Stories are told of the nightingale and the rose, of jinn who steal dreams, and saints who visit sleepers to offer guidance. Children curl beside their siblings, sometimes 2 or 3 to a mattress, breathing in rhythm with the night. They do not fear monsters, for their fathers have recited Ayat al-Kursi beside them. A shield of sacred verse, woven like a soft blanket over their dreams. Sleep is sacred. It is said that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, received visions in the night. Messages more vivid than waking life. Thus, to sleep in ancient Baghdad was to step into a realm of possibility. Even those who feared the shadows, the desert wolves, the restless dead, the whisper of a distant wind, still lay down with courage, knowing the dawn would rise with mercy. Guards patrolled the alleys. Date palms rustled softly. Cats curled on ledges. And in the mosques, some few remained awake, chanting dhikr, the remembrance of God, until their voices dissolved into stars. The city hummed gently in its rest. Not silent, but tranquil. A place where learning and love, science and spirit, shared the same courtyard. Even the call to prayer, Fajr, would not come for hours. The city had time. Time to sleep. Time to dream. And perhaps, tonight, the stars above ancient Baghdad still echo in your imagination. A city lit by oil and wisdom. A place where sleep was a door, and every sleeper carried a universe inside them. So rest now, as they did. Imagine the soft fabric beneath you. The scent of rosewater in the air. The rustle of a fig tree just outside your window. The open sky above, thick with stars still bearing Arabic names. Names whispered by those who once fell asleep, believing that dreams could change the world. Night falls early in the north. The sun, low and shy in winter, barely stretches its golden limbs across the ice, before retreating behind the fjords again. And when it leaves, darkness claims the land like a thick, heavy blanket. In the land of the Vikings, where snow whispers on the thatched rooftops, and wolves cry from the tree line, night is not only an end. It is a challenge. But within the longhouse, there is warmth. There is company. And there is sleep. Picture it now. A single wooden hall, long as a ship turned upside down, its ribs made of timber, its breath heavy with smoke and stew. Here, under a curved roof of reeds and sod, entire families live and sleep together. The hearth is the heart. A fire, glowing amber, runs down the center of the room like a spine. It never dies. Even at midnight, its embers glow red, casting dancing shadows against fur-lined walls. Around it, on benches and furs, the people of the north prepare for slumber. They do not wear silk. They wear wool. Thick, scratchy, hand-spun from the sheep they shear. Layer upon layer to keep the cold from creeping in. And yet, they sleep soundly. Because they are used to the cold. They respect it. But they do not fear it. A Viking family at rest is like a nest of foxes. Children curl beside parents, huddled beneath fur pelts bear, deer, wolf. They breathe together. Sleep together. Dream together. No beds. Only sleeping benches. Platforms of wood along the walls, covered with straw and skins. And those not lucky enough to sleep on a bench, roll into the corners of the longhouse, cocooned in cloaks, their boots still on. The air smells of iron and pine, smoke and sweat, ale and ash. But to them, it is home. Before sleep, there is always the fire's story. An old man, gray-bearded, speaks in a slow, rhythmic voice, tales of Thor and his hammer, of frost giants and long sea voyages, of women who ride wolves, and gods who dream of the end of the world Ragnarok. Children listen with wide eyes, the fire painting dragons across the rafters. And slowly, they begin to drift. Their mother wraps an arm around the youngest. The father shifts his axe slightly closer to the wall. Just in case. Outside, the wind howls, dragging snow across the door like a ghost's whisper. But inside, the longhouse holds. Its walls are thick. Its beams are strong. And its people know how to rest through the darkest of winters. Sleep in the Viking world is practical, but not without magic. They believed that dreams could carry messages. A raven in your sleep could mean victory. A frozen lake might speak of betrayal. Some warriors even claimed that they had seen their death in sleep, and it had made them brave. And the women keepers of stories and fate sometimes whispered that sleep was a thread, spun by the Norns, those shadowy sisters who wove the future at the base of Yggdrasil, the world tree. Sleep was a way to listen to those threads. There were no pillows, only rolled up cloaks. There were no lullabies, but the sound of fire and the breath of dogs. Even the animals slept close. Goats, cats, sometimes a horse. Huddled in the back stalls of the longhouse, sharing their body heat with the humans who raised them. This was not a quiet sleep, but a living, breathing one. Snoring echoed through the beams. A child murmured in his dreams. Someone turned over with a grunt, adjusting the sheepskin that had slipped from his shoulders. And yet, peace. Not the peace of silence, but the peace of safety. Of togetherness. Of knowing that, while outside the furious wind might cut like a blade, inside, you are wrapped in warmth, in story, in legacy. Sometimes, someone would wake in the middle of the night. To add a log to the fire. To check the door. To listen for the howl of something distant and wild. But they would always return to their place. Always return to the embers. Always return to sleep. And in that sleep, the Vikings did not only rest. They dreamed of ships, of thunder gods, of endless green lands beyond the sea. They dreamed of honor, of mead, of the next sunrise. And when they awoke, often before dawn, they rose without complaint. Because in the north, life was short, and sleep was never wasted. So now, imagine it. Your back against rough timber. A pelt drawn to your chin. The firelight flickering behind your eyelids. Your breath fogs the air. But you are not cold. You are home. You are part of a line of dreamers. that stretches across snow and time. People who, even in the darkest, deepest nights, knew how to close their eyes, and find comfort in the flame. High above the valleys and plains of ancient China, the stone spine of the Great Wall stretches across the earth. A serpent of brick and fortitude, winding through mountains, forests, and silence. And here, perched atop its jagged length, men kept watch. Not kings. Not scholars. But soldiers. Simple men, hardened by cold, bound by duty, and comforted only by the warmth of fire and each other's breath. The sun has set now. Its orange farewell has faded into the ink of night. And as darkness spreads over the mountains, the watch begins. This is not the kind of night that welcomes sleep. It is the kind that watches you sleep. The kind of night where the shadows seem to whisper. And the distant cry of an animal might not be just an animal. But even here, even on this cold and lonesome stretch of the wall, sleep has its place. Brief. Stolen. But sacred. The soldiers rest in turns. One sleeps while another peers into the dark. The sleeping quarters are simple, stone towers, carved from the mountain-s bones, filled with the smell of oil lamps, dried rations, and worn leather. No beds, only mats. Thin straw mats laid over rough floorboards, covered with coarse blankets stitched from old uniforms. Each man lies curled beneath his cloak, boots still on, sword within reach. And beside the sleeping ones, others sit awake. Their eyes fixed on the blackness beyond the wall, searching for movement, listening for drums, watching for fire signals from other towers. Far in the distance. For this is not a place of peace. This is a place of purpose. And yet, the body must rest. Even the vigilant must eventually close their eyes. So when sleep comes, it is deep, immediate, and dreamless. It is not filled with lullabies, but with fatigue. And yet, there is calm in that too. The wall was not only a shield. It was a home. A passage of time. A monument to sacrifice. In some seasons, when no enemies threatened and the stars were kind, the night would soften. Soldiers would share quiet conversation, a rice cake or a sip of wine, and then lean against the cold walls of the tower, pulling their coats tighter, letting their minds drift. Some dreamt of fields far away, of their wives weaving cloth in quiet villages, of children they had never met, of meals cooked by someone who loved them. Some dreamt of nothing. The blackness behind their eyes was a reflection of the sky above. One of them hums a low melody from his province, perhaps something his mother sang as he fell asleep as a child. It is soft, almost lost to the wind. But in it is a longing, a home carried in the heart. In these towers, there is no privacy. Sleep is shared like everything else. Eat, rations, fatigue, and hope. Sometimes they dream of the wall itself. They dream they are building it. One stone after another, stretching beyond the horizon, never ending, never finished. They awake in sweat, unsure if they slept at all. Outside, the wind roams like a restless spirit, rattling the shutters, whistling through the narrow slits in the tower walls. But the fires remain lit. Tiny stars of safety, glowing from each tower to the next, a chain of light across a sleeping empire. There were guards who believed that lighting these fires was sacred. That they not only signaled danger, but also told the night, "We are here. We are watching. And we will not be moved." Sometimes the wind would carry a voice from a distant outpost, singing or calling or laughing. And for a moment, the men felt less alone. In that shared stillness, a strange comfort settled. Not comfort in softness, but in duty. In knowing you are a link in something greater. In knowing you are not forgotten. As the hours pass, one man wakes, and another takes his place. The rhythm is ancient. Trusted. No one complains. No one questions. This is how it has always been. And how it must continue. Some nights, the stars shimmer so clearly, it's as if heaven has opened its gates. Just to remind them that they're not alone. One soldier, younger than the rest, pulls a scroll from his coat. He cannot read, but he remembers what it says, a letter from his sister, blessed with a red stamp from their village priest. He holds it to his heart before sleep, as though the words alone might guard him through the night. And so they sleep, in shifts and silence, guarding a world that dreams behind them. They may never be remembered. No name carved in marble. No poems written. But they kept the fire alive. They stood the watch. And in their sleep, they carried the weight of 1,000 miles of stone. So now, you too, close your eyes. Let the wind pass you by. Let the torches flicker quietly. Let the walls protect you, even if only in imagination. You are safe. You are watched over. And like those long ago sentinels, you can finally rest. The stars shimmer softly over the Nile, casting their ancient gaze upon Egypt's golden heart. Within the sacred hush of the palace walls, a different kind of night begins. A royal night. This is not the rest of laborers or merchants. This is the sleep of gods among men. Or so the pharaoh is believed to be. Here, sleep is ceremony. Not merely a surrender of the body, but a ritual of passage, a journey through dream temples and afterlives. The air inside the palace is sweet with lotus oil and frankincense, its scent rising in curls of warmth from braziers at every corner. Attendants tread softly, their footsteps muffled by fine reed mats, their robes brushing against alabaster walls carved with divine script. As the moon climbs high, the pharaoh prepares for rest. Not alone, but attended by priests, servants, and silence. He is bathed in warm water perfumed with crushed petals. Blue lotus, sacred to the dream world, and believed to open the third eye, inviting visions in the hours of darkness. His body is massaged with oils, his limbs wrapped in soft linen like the gods themselves. Tonight, he will sleep in the palace of eternity, beneath a ceiling painted with stars, each one a god watching over his slumber. His bed is carved from cedar, a gift from distant lands. Its legs are lion-shaped, fierce, and noble. The mattress is woven reeds, covered in fine white linen bleached by desert sun. Above him hangs a golden canopy, decorated with symbols of Ra, protector of the rising sun, so that even in sleep, the pharaoh remains connected to the cosmic order. To sleep, for him, is no simple rest. It is to cross into the Duat, the realm of gods and the dead, where dreams are not figments, but revelations. Before closing his eyes, the pharaoh drinks from a cup. A mixture of honeyed wine, myrrh, and sacred herbs. A potion known to dull the senses and open the mind to vision. Then, silence. Around him, his chamber glows with golden lamplight. Hieroglyphs dance on the walls, their meaning ancient, powerful. Beside him, a scribe waits, should a dream require recording. The pharaoh's eyes close, and his breathing slows. In the stillness, you can almost feel the walls breathe. The night wraps around him like linen. Outside, the garden sighs with wind, palms rustling, papyrus whispering by the fountains. Even the frogs and crickets along the river lower their songs for him. He begins to dream. And in his dream, he is no longer Pharaoh. He is a falcon, soaring above the Nile. He is a boat, sailing toward the horizon. He is light. These visions are sacred. Not just imagination, but messages from the gods. Meanwhile, others in the palace sleep too. Queen, priests, servants, soldiers. All in their chambers, each with rituals of their own. The queen's chamber is perfumed with rose water. Silk covers her, and beside her bed lies a statue of Hathor, goddess of love and dreams. She holds a polished mirror, believing that if she stares into it before sleep, she may glimpse a vision of eternity. Young princesses sleep nearby, their dreams watched over by cat-shaped amulets, placed carefully on their pillows. The guards outside the palace, even they hold small charms against their hearts, praying to Bes, protector of sleep, to keep their rest unbroken when their watch ends. And yet, not all in the palace rest peacefully. There are scribes who labor deep into the night, under flickering torchlight, copying spells from the Book of the Dead, to guard the pharaoh's soul from nightmares. There are priests who stand vigil beside temple walls, chanting softly to keep evil at bay. In Egypt, the line between night and afterlife is thin. Every dream may be an omen. Every nightmare, a warning. That is why the pharaoh's sleep matters. Because his dreams may shape the destiny of the kingdom. It is said that when he dreams of birds flying west, war is coming. When he dreams of fields blooming out of stone, prosperity is near. So, he sleeps under watchful eyes, and when dawn finally rises, he will wake not only as a man, but as a messenger of the gods. The golden canopy will lift, servants will stir, the scribe will bow, and the palace will breathe again. But for now, he dreams. And through your mind too, those ancient dreams may pass. Feathers and stars, temples and rivers, a kingdom of light drifting behind your eyes. So let yourself drift too. Let the perfume of lotus and incense lull you. Let the Nile's flow carry you to quietness. Let the gods, forgotten but never gone, stand watch over your rest. You, too, are royalty tonight. Sleep in golden peace. Across the endless Mongol steppe, where the land stretches like a great sea of grass, the stars reign quietly overhead. Unmoving, unblinking, older than any empire that rode these plains. This is a land without walls, without palaces, or temples, where sky and soil embrace as one. And sleep comes not beneath rooftops, but beneath the heavens. It is here, in the soft hush of the evening wind, that a Mongol family begins to settle for the night. Their round, felt-covered tent of wood and hide stands alone in a vast silence. Its walls are simple, yet strong, built to withstand the howls of winter and the heat of summer. Inside, it is warm with firelight, smelling of smoke, wool, and boiled milk. The day has been long, full of riding, tending herds, watching the distant mountains for storms or strangers. But now, as twilight wraps the world in blue, everything slows. A mother hums softly as she stirs the last pot of Iraq fermented mare's milk. While her children lie on padded rugs and furs, limbs heavy with the weight of motion and wind. There are no grand rituals here, no incense or marble pillows. Instead, the rituals are of survival. Of closing the flap against the cold. Of checking the rope lines that hold the tent firm. Of warming stones by the fire to tuck into the bedding. Outside, the horses have been tethered. Their shadows shift under the stars, necks bent, manes dancing in the wind. The steppe is never truly still. There is always a sound. A whistle of air, the rustle of a fox, a distant gallop echoing like a ghost. But the Mongols do not fear this. They were born in motion, and even in dreams, they wander the open grasslands. As the fire dims in the center of the GER, embers glowing like little red eyes, the family drifts into a sleep shaped by movement. Rolling thunder across hills, the whisper of eagle wings above. Fathers sleep with knives beneath their bedding, not from fear, but from habit. Even in peace, the warrior sleeps with one hand half closed. But sleep comes deeply. A Mongol rider may have spent the day in the saddle, bow at his back, eyes scanning the horizon. But by night, he curls into the fur of a wolf he once hunted, his body at rest, his breath slow and even. The children dream of horses running with no riders, of camps with endless stews and no chores, of the great blue sky, eternal Tengri, watching over them like a gentle god. Sleep in the steppe isn't confined to 1 hour or place. It may happen beneath the stars, beside the fire, against a horse's flank if needed. It is woven into the rhythm of nature. The stories they tell before bed are not of kings or palaces, but of cunning fox spirits, of shamans who ride through dreams, of mountains that whisper secrets when the world is quiet. Some elders believe that dreams come not from inside the mind, but from the winds. That spirits on the steppe carry thoughts to sleeping heads, leaving behind warnings, memories, even songs. That is why the GER's circular shape matters. No corners to trap bad spirits, no sharp angles to tear the fabric between this world and the next. Tonight, as wolves sing low across the valley, the tent glows faintly. Inside, wrapped in furs and wool, a people dream freely. Dreams of conquest. Dreams of peace. Dreams of riding into endless sky. Even Genghis Khan, it is said, once dreamed of a bird that carried him above the clouds, and when he awoke, he knew he would unite the tribes. You too may drift now, in this vast sea of grass. Let the steppe wind comb your hair. Let the sound of horses soothe your breath. Let the sky watch over you, as it has watched over every rider, every child, every firelight. Sleep for 1,000 years. Sleep beneath the stars, in the quiet, powerful land, where motion never truly ends, even in dreams. Night is nearly complete now. The stars have made their slow arc across the sky, and the world holds its breath in the softest silence of all. The sacred stillness before dawn. It is a time long feared, long honored, and long misunderstood. This final hour of darkness, just before the birds begin to sing, was once known across cultures as the veil hour. When the wall between the living and the dead grew thin. When dreams were more than stories. When spirits, gods, and ancestors drifted through sleeping minds like passing clouds. Every culture, every village, every ancient household held some superstition about this final hour. In medieval Europe, it was the witching time, when candles were to be relit, mirrors covered, and doors closed tight. Some believed if you woke suddenly at this hour, it meant something unseen had been watching you. In ancient Japan, the hour before dawn belonged to the yurei, restless spirits of the dead. Monks would wake and chant sutras in soft voices, calling calm to the restless air. Among the Maasai of East Africa, elders taught that if a lion roared at this hour, it was not hunger, but a message from the ancestors. To pay attention to dreams. In the icy dark of northern Scandinavia, the Sami people listened closely to the sounds of the wind. If it moaned across the roof too long, it was said the Noidi, their shamans, were walking through dreams, seeking knowledge between worlds. And in ancient Mesoamerica, the Maya believed this hour was the realm of the bat god, protector of sleep and guardian of the underworld's door. They offered soft whispers into the night, prayers carried in smoke and shadow. This hour was not always comforting, but it was always powerful. Because in the ancient world, night was not simply time off. It was a passage, a ceremony. Sleep was sacred. Dreams were divine. And darkness was not just absence of light, but a space where things unseen could stir. Even now, in your bed, in your room filled with modern quiet, you may feel it. That hush. That old stillness. That sense that the air is just a little heavier, that your thoughts are softer, that time is stretching like the long shadow of a candle. It is a time for surrender. Not to fear, but to rest. Because this hour is not about being awake or asleep. It is about letting go. Letting go of the plans, the noise, the remembering. Letting yourself drift into the deep ocean of the mind, where ancient people once believed the soul could leave the body and walk among the spirits. In this moment, you are no longer Roman, or Egyptian, or Mongol, or villager. You are simply human. A sleeper. A dreamer. You join millions before you, who laid down at night, closed their eyes, and slipped into the mysteries of sleep. Not with science, but with ritual and wonder. Perhaps that's what we've forgotten. That sleep is not just rest. It is return to something older than language, older than history. So take one last breath, let the shadows fall where they may. You are safe. You are quiet. You are part of the ancient night. And when the sun finally rises, when the sky warms and the birds begin to sing, you will wake not just rested, but connected to the great, quiet, sleeping world that came before you. Good night, traveler. Dream deeply. The ancient world watches over you.